Hello and welcome to this edition of Safety First. I'm your host, Frank Poulin, and today we're here with Brittany Landon, Assistant Victim Witness Director for the Suffolk Commonwealth's Attorney's Office, as well as Meredith Travers, Assistant Commonwealth Attorney and the Domestic Violence Prosecutor. Ladies, thanks for joining me.
Thank you for having us.
Now, we're kind of talking about a few topics today, but there's a week coming up, that National Crime Victim Rights Week in April.
That's correct.
Yes.
And so this kind of dovetails into that. Now, a couple questions. What services are you currently providing domestic violence victims that have been a victim of a recent crime involving their intimate partner?
Well, we have a new thing that we're doing is having very quick contact from when an incident happens. So generally speaking, from when, for example, an assault occurs between an intimate partner, so husband, wife, boyfriend, girlfriend, I generally make contact within 24 to 48 hours, just to, first of all, make sure they're okay, go over safety planning, just offer them support right off the bat because many of them don't have any support system. And then also introduce myself, let them know that Meredith is the one that typically is assigned to the case, and kind of explain what the next steps are going to be and walk them through the process.
Okay.
So I think one of the great things that our office is doing, and since we brought Brittany on in the latter part of last year, she's able to really focus on the victims and their needs.
Okay.
Our office is trying to be very victim-centered, and we're fortunate that Mr. Ferguson, our Commonwealth Attorney, is so supportive of prosecution of domestic violence, but also just taking care of the victim, the totality of the needs that the victim has.
Sure.
So as soon as we get the report, whether there's actually a criminal charge that comes from it or not, if police respond or if a victim goes to the magistrate to alert them that an issue occurred, Brittany is immediately involved in offering services, explaining what the court process would be if there is a criminal portion to it, which is where I come in.
Okay.
But even if there's not, we can assist with protective orders, and that protective orders can look like a broad spectrum. Sometimes it's a no contact provision with the perpetrator, sometimes it's limited contact. So we're really trying to hear what the victims need and meet them where they are.
Help them as fast as possible.
Absolutely.
And what does a typical day in court, I guess, look like on your domestic violence docket day?
So we come in, it is busy.
Hectic day.
Yeah, we're happy to provide the services, but it is an unfortunate reality that there are a large number of domestic violence cases. Brittany and I work as a team, but and at times we are together, but it's also sort of separate roles. Again, her focus is on helping explain the process to the victim if they want to be in a separate space because they don't want to be in the main waiting area with either family or perpetrator. She can do that. She's facilitating with protective orders. I, on the other hand, am on the actual court day and meeting with the victims, of course, and discussing what the possibilities of the defendant's outcome are.
Okay.
But I'm also interacting with my officers who have brought us the case, talking about anything that maybe struck them as important at the time on the scene that for whatever reason I may not have been aware of before. So I'm working with the officers and working with defense counsel about what resolution might be.
Okay, so yeah, it's a very, very busy day.
It is.
A lot of times they're not even comfortable going upstairs on their own because they know that their abuser is going to be waiting there. So I'll coordinate meeting them downstairs at our office and walk them up and arrange to get them immediately in a room so that sometimes they're having to wait, sometimes several hours. So just having a safe place that they can sit and feel a little bit more comfortable since it is a really stressful situation. Once I get up there, I check them all in, and at this point I've normally had at least 3 to 5 at least over the phone contact with them. Sometimes I meet with them in person because they're really nervous, or I may have gone with them previously for a protective order.
Okay. And what do you think some of the challenges are in domestic violence cases versus other cases your office kind of handles?
Well, certainly the fact that in a standard intimate partner domestic violence case, the victim is going home or at some point will be back in residence or interacting with the perpetrator makes it different than many other criminal cases. So in a standard criminal case, it's typical that our victim and our defendant won't know each other or would have very little interaction.
Sure.
And the fact that there are all of the layers of emotion that come with domestic violence, the fact that our victims feel a sense of tied to their defendant, that they have feelings of affection and love, that they often have children together.
Kind of torn emotions.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so we have to try to balance not just holding the defendant accountable, but also what services could potentially be put in place to help let the family move forward in whatever fashion the victim wants. And maybe that's that the parties are no longer together, but the defendant needs some type of anger management class. Or we have something called a batterers intervention program that is specific for intimate partner domestic violence. But really kind of dealing with the multitude of emotions that come with a domestic case as opposed to other standard criminal case.
Oftentimes, too, there's a lot of guilt that the victims are feeling about reporting, and especially if the relationship has been a long one, they want to help fix that person or help get them help, and so they feel a lot of guilt about reporting it and about them potentially being in jail or having consequences or this charge on their record. So there's just a lot of emotions that are different from other crimes.
Yeah.
So it's
not
just
cut and dried. It's an emotional tie
right.
to that person.
And like Meredith said, oftentimes, not always, but sometimes they do get back together. And so we're trying to put services in place during the outcome of the case that hopefully will prevent something like this from happening again.
Lead them down a positive road.
Right.
And when and how does contact, and we kind of touched on this, begin with your office with domestic victims?
Like I said earlier, typically I make contact within 24 to 48 hours over the phone. I call them, I let them know that I just received a police report in which they were the victim. My number one concern is, are you okay?
Yeah.
Any safety concerns. Sometimes they're so stressed out that they don't even think about the fact that they may need to seek medical attention. So going over that with them, and then a lot of times we will meet with them before the case, both of us, and go over, different things that may happen and
the
explain.
Aspects of the case and
right.
the process by which.
And so for me, it's similar but somewhat different. There's obviously a breadth of cases that we get. There are the majority, as far as volume, are what are called misdemeanor domestic assault cases. So it's an offensive, unwanted touching, but it may be something that doesn't result in medical needs or medical treatment. Having said that, I also handle any of the felonies that come along with intimate partner. So sometimes, if it's a more severe case, sometimes I'll get phone calls from my officers or texts from the officers actually on scene telling me that they have specific concerns about a victim and their safety.
Oh, wow.
And so I may become aware of the case even as quickly as while officers are still on scene.
It's almost happening, yeah.
And that's certainly the exception to the rule, but it's we're fortunate that we have a team that all works very closely together. On a standard case, if Brittany finds out about a new case or a protective order, she may staff it with me. We may have that conversation in advance. And then again, depending on the severity of the nature of the case, I may become involved immediately, or it may be a couple of weeks once the file is in front of me. The office is certainly involved almost immediately in some capacity. It just depends on the type of case for when I get involved.
And what experience does your office have? I guess you've been doing this a long time. So how does that experience help you with future victims?
I think just knowing the layers of domestic violence and how it affects people, because a lot of people that have never worked with domestic violence victims or have that knowledge, they automatically, I think one of their first responses is, why does she stay, or why does he stay? And there's many reasons why people stay, and I think that's the most important thing, is having that empathy and understanding of why someone stayed or why they're in this situation, and that brings that first connection with the victim that I think is really important.
And is there any task force or community awareness currently going on to spread awareness of domestic violence issues?
We're fortunate here in Suffolk. There actually are a couple of different things that are happening right now, and we're always looking to grow and expand the community involvement. The two that come to mind in particular are the Reduction in Domestic Violence Task Force. That's a lot of words to say. We call it RID, R-I-D. And again, that is a organization or a task force that meets, and it's a number of different actual governmental organizations. We meet with our office. Obviously, Brittany is there. Joan Turner, who's our community outreach coordinator, comes as well. We have members from the police department. The sheriff's department is welcome. We have members from Western Tidewater
wow.
Mental Health Services that can
Court
come,
services unit.
probation and parole.
A lot of different organizations.
Correct. And so we come together once every quarter and staff any particular cases or new concerns we have, new issues on the horizon. And we're actually meeting this Friday. We typically meet here at City Hall, and again, that's once every 3 months that we get together and sit down and, of course, have each other's information anyway, so that we could be in touch during the in-between the time. We also have recently partnered with Main Street United Methodist right here in downtown. Main Street approached us last fall and said that they were looking to see what they could do to facilitate just kind of community awareness and help members in the community combat domestic violence. And we're fortunate we've been working with them. We're meeting once every 2 months and presenting programs. We've done that twice already. And we're making that, it's typically on a Monday or Tuesday evening. We're making that open to the community. We're trying to spread in the faith-based community and let others know what they can look for, signs of abuse, or what they can expect from the court process. That's been a very successful partnership, and that we're very pleased to have.
We've been doing different topics every time, so it just gives them, you know, a new set of tools in their toolbox of how, if they come in contact with victims, of how to work with them and what services they may
help them or point them in the right direction to get help. All right.
Absolutely.
Well, it sounds like you guys are doing some great work on a very difficult subject. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
I think we just appreciate your time, and certainly appreciate and believe that the more that the community is aware and the more that we address this topic, then hopefully it's something that we can bring it into.
Absolutely. Well, thanks again for joining me.
Thank you so much.
And thank you at home for joining us for this edition of Safety First.